Hi, my friend, Caleb Johnson here, and I have a huge question to ask you, real estate investors. How would you rate your level of personal discipline on a scale of 1 to 10? If your answer is anything less than a 10, I've got something neat for you. And let me tell you, discipline means pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone and doing things that are difficult and sometimes boring. Achieving massive success requires you to do those difficult things. Building your levels of personal discipline is not easy, but it does pay off. In fact, you can't achieve anything significant without discipline. Now, I just released a program for investors where I walk with you as an accountability coach to aid you stay on track so you can push yourself to do the hard things that greatness is going to require of you. Starting is easy. Go to redccapitalgroup.com and click accountability coaching at the top right of the screen. So let's get to work, and now to the interview. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Caleb Johnson, host of From Trial to Triumph, and I am very, very excited to share this man with you today, Mr. Rod Khleif. Rod, welcome to the show.
Let's have some fun today, Caleb. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. Well, Rod, can you go ahead and share your story with our listeners?
Sure. It's pretty interesting, actually. A little painful as well. So I'm an immigrant, immigrated from the Netherlands. Wooden shoes and windmills. This was in 1966. I immigrated with my brother Albert, my mother Zvancha. We ended up in Denver, Colorado, and I'm going to tell you, we didn't have much growing up, Caleb. We really struggled. I remember we shopped at an expired food store. Believe it or not, they had one, and of course it was cheaper than non-expired food. And I remember we drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because it was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, it sounds better than it is. And I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army literally all the way through junior high school till I finally got disgusted when I was 14, and I was tall, and I lied about my age and got a job at Burger King flipping burgers so that I could buy my own clothes and then buy a car ultimately. And, you may have listeners that had it harder than I did, or maybe even have it harder now, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So, she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. We always had a house full of kids. And she was a bit of an entrepreneur with that babysitting money. So she invested in the stock market successfully and also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was the house right across the street from us when I was about 14. She paid about 30 grand. When I was 14, and then she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. That time I was 17, it had gone up in value $20,000, and I was like, "What? You made 20 grand? You didn't do anything? Screw college! I'm getting into real estate." So I went out and got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, so I could sell real estate. And I wasn't just an agent; I was a broker. I could have my own office. You were able to do that back then with education. Now they got smart. You need some experience before you can be a broker. But I was a broker, but I was still living at home. My first year in and I was smart enough to go work for another broker, obviously. But my first year in real estate, I made about $8 grand. This is 1978. My second year, maybe 10, 12 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was really good money. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I was dating a girl, and I met her dad, and he was a broker, actually, and he taught me about mindset and psychology, and how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and psychology. His name was Gino, and I just found out he passed a couple of years ago. It was really sad, but anyway, fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term. I own thousands of apartment units now. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big I could barely fit it through a freaking door. I thought I was a real estate god. When that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smackdown. Mm-hmm. Well, that was 2008. I lost $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so, what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and at my boot camps is the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. But, maybe more importantly, or as importantly at least, is the mindset it took to recover from losing $50 million. And like I said, this is something I talk about a lot. Happy to, get a little deeper with it if you'd like, Caleb.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, so, the first thing I did was I reassociated with what I wanted and why I wanted it. And so I got real clear on my goals. And so it started with getting real clear and reassociating with what I wanted. This is how I recovered, was just reassociating with my goals. Because, how do you get anything if you don't know what it is, right? And so I had to completely reassociate, and which is, one of the reasons if you come to one of my boot camps, the first thing we do for an hour, hour and a half is goal setting on steroids, really, is what I call it. Because, you've got to be very, very clear on what you want and why you want it. Because you've got to create what Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich calls a burning desire, because that's how you push through fear. That's how you push through limiting beliefs. That's how you get a little uncomfortable. We all know the comfort zone's a nice warm place, and we also know nothing freaking grows there, right? Mm-hmm. And so, it starts with that burning desire. And let me speak to limiting beliefs for a second. When I immigrated this country, I didn't speak English, and I got thrown into school, and and I found out what bullies were for the first time. I got my butt kicked occasionally and hadn't learned how to fight back yet, and didn't have really much of a father figure to help me with that at the time. And then my mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in wooden shoes and those leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest. And so I got my ass kicked again. And, and then we had bullies that lived at the end of my block, and they chased me home, and my mom had chased them off with a fly swatter. So the next day I got my ass kicked again. And I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough. And and so, and a lot of people have these limiting beliefs, and, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not analytical enough. That was another one of mine. Or, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, and there's a reason that the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are BS, but, we believe they're real. And so if you have one of those, I would just encourage you to pull it out in the daylight, look at it with your adult rational mind, recognize that it's BS, and after a while it'll diminish and go away. And that's what I used to be afraid to raise my hand in class, and now I speak in front of literally thousands of people a year, and that's how I did it. And so, and then once you've got very, very clear on your goals, and by the way, if you haven't done your goals recently, you should do them at least 3 times a year. At my link tree, if you go to rodslinks.com, at the bottom is a goal setting workshop. I do it every year. I did it on January 2nd this year. Usually I do it on the 1st, but it was on the 2nd this year. There's a goal setting guide that you can download. And here's the thing. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives, Caleb. And that's designing your life. So, I'll tell you how you can come to my boot camp later. But regardless of whether you're interested in real estate or not, you need to do your goals. If you've got a child that's over 10 years old, have them do it. It's really professionally done. You'll really enjoy it. It'll be a powerful thing to do together with your kids and your spouse for sure. And do your goals separately with your spouse, and then compare notes and see how aligned you are. See if you're headed the direction, right? So again, it starts with the goals, and we get into why the goals are a must in that process. Very, very powerful process. And again, it's the first thing we do at my boot camps, because that's I'm going to tell you, people think that it's the real estate knowledge that makes someone successful in real estate. For example, that's what I teach. I teach people how to buy apartment complexes, but it's not the real estate knowledge. It's the ability to freaking take action. Okay, that's what dictates success. I see it time and time again in my students. And so anyway, it starts with knowing what it is that you want and why you want it, and then you have to make a decision. And I don't mean dip your toe in the water, or I don't mean put one foot in the water and one foot in, 1 foot out kind of a thing. I mean, when you make a decision, it is done. And so, the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. A great analogy for a real decision would be if you're going to attack the island in battle, you burn your ships because you're taking their damn ships home. That's a decision. Okay, you're in. And sometimes that can be the most important decision of your life. And maybe it's a decision to figure out a side hustle, to capitalize on this economic uncertainty that's coming. I'm going to tell you that the what's about to hit the fan in this country, and there's going to be incredible opportunity, definitely in my space, in the multifamily real estate space. There's $430 billion worth of multifamily loans that are expiring this year and next year. And those guys are in trouble because they either have to sell, and sales are way down, 74% decrease in sales year over year. It was just an article that I read yesterday or day before yesterday. and of course they have to refinance, and we all know what's happened with interest rates. So there's some real issues there, and there's going to be some real opportunity there. But so, what I would tell you if you're listening or watching this show is pick a vehicle. Decide how you're going to capitalize on what's coming and get up to speed on it immediately, because if you're trying to learn it in the thick of it, it's going to be too late. You need to get up to speed right now. There's going to be opportunity buying businesses, certainly buying real estate, and there's multiple asset classes. There's shopping centers, there's industrial, there's self-storage, of course, multifamily, but you need to get up to speed right away. So, maybe you make a decision that you're going to take advantage of what's coming, that you're going to grind for a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. So it starts with that decision. And then you got to take that first step. And, Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith and the next step will be revealed. Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but you got to take that step. And that sometimes it can be a small step, but sometimes it can be the biggest step of your life. And so that's the next piece. And then, what I would say after that is you've got to play to your strengths. People will tell you to build your weaknesses. I'm going to tell you, no, that's a mistake, because your strengths are your greatest assets. I see it in the multifamily space because it requires analysis, it requires somebody that's analytical, and it requires, outgoing. And those are some of the best partnerships I've ever seen, where you combine an analytical person with an outgoing person. And so, that's why I would encourage you to play to your strengths, because if you're playing to your strengths, first of all, you're going to love what you do. You're loving what you do, and you never work another day in your life, because work is play when you're doing what you love. And you're going to be able to innovate more. You're going to be more creative. You're going to be more excited about it. You're going to be in the zone, and you're going to be more passionate. And pretty much any business you get into requires you to influence people, definitely multifamily real estate. And if you're passionate, you'll be much more likely to influence people. People love to be around people that they can tell are passionate about what they do. And so, play to your strengths would be the next piece.
It all goes back to the limiting beliefs, the first thing that you said. Yeah. And so how do people get over that?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. Is most of them are based on some childhood experience, again, that has no basis in fact. 99.9% of them are bullshit. They're just BS. Again, that's why the acronym's perfect. Mm-hmm. Belief system. And but you've got to consciously think about them. So like, I used to ask people, how can I I used to ask myself, actually, how can I show them I'm good enough? Which, of course, presupposed that I wasn't. But, what I did was I came to the realization when I started consciously thinking about it, and that's the operative word. If you've got one of these limiting beliefs, you need to consciously drag it out into the daylight and think about it when it pops up. Because anybody that would reject me just didn't know me. I'm a freaking gift from God, like everybody is. And if they rejected me, it's their own bullshit going on. It has nothing to do with me. And I had to come to that realization, which is the truth. Okay, so, if you've got one of those, again, really look at it. Consciously is the operative word. Otherwise, it'll just still be there. But if you do that enough times, it'll go away. Like I said, man, I was terrified to get called on in class or get embarrassed or humiliated. And shit, I do my boot camps in freaking flip-flops and shorts now. I don't care. I've become more and more free from the opinion of others. And so, that's the value of consciously looking at that and working on those things. But the next piece that I want to talk about is focus. And again, if you're listening or watching Caleb and I here today, you're a leader. And boy, does the world need leaders more than ever right now. Don't get me started on the freaking politics and the crap that's coming out in the news. You don't even know what to believe anymore, because it's pretty much all crap. The news, by the way, don't ever forget that the news is not like this authoritative place. It's commercial. I mean, it's a for-profit business, and they don't make money unless they scare the hell out of you. So don't ever forget that. They're there to make profit. They've got all these authoritative sounding music and these, really polished speakers that the newscasters but they're a commerce. Okay. They're a commercial business. But here's the thing. With focus, whatever you focus on gets larger. both positive or negative. And if you're focused on that crap, your blood pressure goes up. And this is, ask me how I know, because I did. And I mean, it was like, I got to get away from this stuff. And so, just stand guard at the door to your mind and bring in the good stuff. Okay. Eliminate or minimize all that crap out there. And like on my podcast, I do clips every week called Own Your Power. They're motivational clips. And, and they're 5 minutes, and there's hundreds of them there. And, if you give me 5 minutes a week, I'll juice your ass. Okay. So I'm serious. So, my podcast is called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm blessed to say we're over 16 million downloads, and it's really well received. And it's likely because of those Own Your Power clips, because people, they don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. But again, whether you listen to me or not, bring in the good stuff. Go on YouTube, watch motivational clips. I love to watch soldiers coming home. I cry like a little girl, but I love that stuff. So bring in that good stuff. Don't bring in the crap. So focus. Focus is super important, because especially in what's coming, because there's going to be a lot of fear. There's a lot of layoffs happening, bank failures, severe recession. It's just crazy what this current administration is doing to this country. And well, we won't go down that political rabbit hole, but the point is it's going to get worse. And so if you're sucked into that, you're going to be paralyzed, because fear paralyzes, right? And so be very, very careful with what you allow in. And so that's why the goals are so important. If you let me walk you through your goals and you get really clear on those and why those goals are a must, that's what you focus on through this, so that you're focused on income generating activity and you're not paralyzed in fear. But back to focus for a minute. I listen to two podcasts. I listen to Tim Ferriss and I listen to Joe Rogan, just to get both sides of the aisle. I think it's obvious which side I'm on. But the point is, I try to keep a balance so that I'm not completely one way or the other, which is no good for anybody. And Tim Ferriss, he interviews really the best of the best in different walks of life, the best athletes, Michael Phelps, and NBA, NFL players, actors, best actors, Arnold and Hugh Jackman, Ed Norton, Jamie Foxx, the billionaires like Ray Dalio, CEOs of the largest companies in the world, Zuckerberg's been on there. And he kind of deconstructs their path to success. And I started to notice a pattern. They almost all meditate. What does meditation enhance? Focus, right? The most successful people on the planet are the ones that are the most focused. So, focus is super, super important. The next thing I want to mention is peer group. Who you hang out with is who you become. You show me your 3 best friends, I'll show you who you are in every aspect of your life, your health, your happiness, your relationships, and certainly your financial, power, where you are there. So, it's very, very important that you are selective there. See, the problem is most people default to a peer group that they went to school with or that they work with, and they may not be the best peer group. There may be people in their peer group that, out of their fear or out of their limiting beliefs or their fear of failure or their fear of getting left behind or their fear of feeling less than if you succeed, will hold you back. And sometimes it's family. And so I will tell you, love your family, but choose your peers. Be very, very selective who you allow to influence you. I remember, when I was losing everything in 2008 and 9, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership, which at the time was about 130 grand all in. It's more than that now. And I was around people that were thriving in that crash, okay? And they were killing it. And they're like telling me, 50 million schmillion, you puss, get up and go make shit happen. And, who do you want to be around when the stuff's hitting the fan, right? People like that, yes? So you got to be very selective who you hang with. And, and since then I've started my own mastermind for that very reason. I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy, and be around, a group that lifts you up, like my coaching students, my warriors. I'm really proud of this. They now own well over 150,000 units that we know of, and I've only been teaching 5 years, and I'm super, super proud of that.
Wow.
And the reason I bring that up is it's such an incredible group. They all work together. They push each other. They validate each other. They praise each other, and they help each other. It's just extraordinary. It's like I get goosebumps thinking about how extraordinary it is. And it's called my warriors. But by the way, I've got a boot camp coming up. Do you mind if I mention it real quick, Caleb?
Please
Okay,
do.
so I've got a 2-day virtual boot camp coming up May 6th and 7th. I don't sell anything there. So it's 2 full days. It's a weekend. I don't sell anything there. And I will give you a code. You can use Caleb. Use the code Caleb, and you can come for $47 freaking dollars. Okay? And I don't sell anything there. It's kind of a duh if you're interested in multifamily real estate. So what you want to do is, and I got to remember to let my team know about that code, but I will do that. And what you want to do is go to rodslinks.com. And at the top is my bootcamp website, and use the code Caleb. The price is already, I think, over $200, and it'll be $400 before the event. But you can come for $47, okay? And it includes my document library and my brand new deal evaluator software to evaluate deals. I mean, it's a screaming deal.
Wow,
And I go through every aspect of the business, from finding deals to building your team, to evaluating deals, to financing them, syndicating them, joint venturing them. I have panels every day, 3 panels, about $2 or $3 billion represented by the panelists. A lot of them are my students. So it's pretty amazing for $47, kind of a no-brainer, honestly. So again, rodslinks.com, use the code Caleb, and you can come for $47. And it's virtual, so you can do it in your underwear. Okay, no big deal. What did I forget? Oh, in those panels, we answer all your questions. I knew there was something I forgot. But anyway, where were we? We were on focus. We were on peer group. Your peers are so freaking important, guys. Mm-hmm. So, if you can't come to the boot camp, or maybe you're not interested in multifamily, you want to do something else, get around people that are doing what you want to do, that aren't afraid of what you want to do, that aren't going to, poo-poo what you're doing, that are going to, again, push you and validate you and praise you and congratulate you when you make moves. That's who you need to be around. Because, when you're starting out a side hustle, and you've got this dream, it's like a fragile thread. And if you get around the wrong group of people, they'll break that thread. So you want to be very, very careful with that. Let's see. One other thing I want to mention before we land the plane with what you asked me about is habits for success. Okay? We all have habits that we use, and some of them are subconscious. A lot of them are subconscious, and they traject our life up or down based on what they are. And they may not be a big deal that day, but enough of them will either bring us up or down. Obviously, health and what you eat is a great example of this. So it's really important for you to pay attention to what your habits are around success, around money, around your health, and everything else, and make sure that they serve you. Super important. So now I'll talk about what you mentioned earlier. When I was 18, I lived in Denver, and I knew I always wanted to live on the beach. And there's obviously no beach in Denver. And so I would visualize the palm trees and the sand and the surf. And, 20 years later, about 22 years later, I built this incredible $8 million mansion on the beach. I mean, this place was extraordinary. I owned the beach on one side. On the back side was my boat lifts. It was like a slice through an island. It was called a Gulf to Bay. I mean, just to describe this place, I had a giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get to the pool. Pools in magazines. Big, giant spiral staircase up through the middle of the house with these wrought iron railings that were all done by an artist. It was just, elevator, wine cellar. On the second floor, I had aquariums put around half of the staircase that cost me almost $200,000. The aquarium. Wow. So this gives you an idea of the house. Mm-hmm. So I worked for this for 20 years. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night, and I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. It was truly there to prove to the world I was good enough, that, hey, I do matter. I am a success. And I'm looking up at this giant house, and my family's inside sleeping. The pool's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. It's just spectacular. And I got depressed. And I don't mean a little depressed. I mean, I was really freaking depressed. And I'm like, what the hell? I've just achieved success like times 10,000. I've got this house. I've got my beautiful family. I had the Maserati. I had the 2 Mercedes and the boat, jet skis, all the crap, all the toys. And I'm like, how could I possibly be depressed? And here's what was going on, Caleb, and you know the story. But there were 3 things going on. One is, you never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. Like the good book says, you need a vision for the future. Without a vision, the people perish, I think is the quote. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that's one piece. Second piece is it's never about the goals. Happiness comes from progress and growth, And I didn't know what I was going to do to progress or grow after that point, right? That's what makes happy. Now, you need the goals. You got to have them to create that burning desire, but you really get the happiness from the growth and progress. But the third big thing was I'd been totally focused on Rod. Rod. Show the world I matter. Show the world I'm good enough. And that's the year I met Tony Robbins. And I went, I was like, man, I got to get my mojo back. So I got some books, and one of them was his, and I really liked it. And so I went and saw him in Fort Lauderdale. This is 23 years ago. And I saw that he fed families for the holidays. I'm like, what a concept, do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. And so I decided to, I called my brother when I got home. I said, let's feed 5 families for Thanksgiving. And we did. And the third family changed my life. We bought food for the kids. We bought frozen turkeys. We bought toys if they had them, food for the family rather, and toys for the kids. And I walk up to this 1-bedroom shack, and there was this Hispanic woman there with 3 kids, and 5 kids. And she walked out. She saw the food, and she started crying. Her kids came out, and 2 or 3 of the older ones started crying, and then I started crying, and I'm like, I was hooked. And I'm blessed to say, Caleb, in the last 23 years, we've fed somewhere between 130 and 140,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton, Florida. Wow. We've done, tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies. We've done tens of thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for officers to keep in their vehicles if they encounter a child, that needs to be comforted. And I don't say this to brag, guys. And those of you listening, I know some of you listening with blood dripping from your teeth, you want this success so bad. And you might be saying, yeah, well, you had money. I'll do it when I have money. No, freaking do it right now. Give back right now. Here's why. We've been taught that we should achieve to be happy. Like we shouldn't be happy until we've totally achieved, right? If you give back, you're happily achieving. And I know it's a play on words, but it's an important one. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science, okay? If you want to learn multifamily, just get your ass to my boot camp, and I'll give you the blueprint and the map. You just got to go do it. I mean, it's scientific. There's no secret sauce. You just got to go do it. But fulfillment's an art. You've got to figure out what juices you and bring that into your life. For me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's animals, the environment, the elderly, whatever it is. Incorporate it right now. And the money will come faster. Now, that you don't do it for that reason, but that's just how God works. The universe works. What you give, you get back. So anyway, I guess we'll leave you with that.
Yeah. Rod, how can someone, and thank you for sharing that story. That was so motivating, powerful, so inspirational. Praise God. Now, how can someone realize if they are that egocentric person that you were?
It's an evolution, man. I've interviewed literally billionaires on my podcast, mega millionaires, and I can tell if they're like I was back then. I can sense it because I was that. It's easy for me to recognize, and I feel sad for them. They may have financial success, but they don't have true success. And I will tell you, if you're worried about it, stop focusing inwardly and focus outwardly and give back in some fashion. Okay, and that will start that evolution for you. Okay, if you're worried that you think you might be egocentric, start giving, man. That's the antithesis to it. So just, you whatever you give, you get. You want love, you give love. You want happiness, you give happiness. You want money, you give money or your time, and you'll get money. It's just how God works, man.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we head out, I want to talk a little bit about the state of the market, right? That's a big topic. And so where do you see this going? You already touched on it a little bit.
I think it's going to get really ugly. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity, like I said earlier. And so, I'm a bear. I'm very bearish. I think I'm meeting with my mastermind next week. There's about $16 billion in assets represented by the members. And I'm typically the most pessimistic one there. But I really believe it's going to get ugly. I've got some headlines here. I did a Facebook Live recently. Like I said, 74% year-over-year decline in the sale of apartment buildings. $430 billion worth of multifamily debt is expiring in the next 2 years. Lenders are anticipating a surge of bad loans that will clog their portfolios. And that just gets me excited. It's opportunity. So the Fed is going to continue to increase interest rates. Here's another one, headline, recession fears. More than half of Americans say they'll lose everything. It's going to be ugly. Consumers are using credit cards to fight inflation. Is that a recipe for freaking disaster? So, I mean, these are all headlines. I just had these in my hand because I did a Facebook Live on this. But anyway, so no, I think it's going to get ugly. But don't get fearful. Get freaking excited. Get your ass to my boot camp and learn multifamily. There's going to be opportunity, or go learn something else to take advantage of this, because it's coming. Okay, and so, if I hadn't been hiding under a rock from losing $50 million, I could have capitalized on '08 and '09. And I'd be on the back of a 300-foot yacht right now, man, because the biggest money is made in a downturn like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content of our podcast, but you have additional real estate investing questions, I'm happy to answer those questions for free. Head over to redseacapitalgroup.com and book an appointment with me. Not only am I the host of the show, but I am actively buying and already own properties across the U.S. So feel free to schedule a time that works best for you. Visit redseacapitalgroup.com to book your appointment today.
Well, Rod, we'll finish up with the final 3 questions. And thank you again so much for being here.
My pleasure, brother.
It's
My pleasure.
such a privilege. Now, the first question is, if you can recommend a book to our listeners, what would that be?
That's a good one. So my love language is gifts, and I give a lot of gifts. I've had the author of the 5 love languages on my show, so I give a lot of gifts. And The Slight Edge is a one I give to my students about those little improvements you make, or decisions you make every day that trajectory your life up or down. Another one is Turning Pro by Stephen Pressman. Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod, that's someone else I've had on my show. That's another good one. There's 3. There's several right there.
Great.
Of course, Think and Grow Rich is a no-brainer. You got to do that one.
And if people want to learn more about you, where's the best place?
Go to Rod's Links, rodslinks.com. There's a ton of free resources there, free books. My #1 best-selling book I give away for free. You just pay the shipping. There's a ton of free resources, and there's a bunch of PDF books that are really good. They're not crap. They're really good books that you can download. Of course, my goal-setting workshop is there. Go do that. So rodslinks.com, and my podcast link. Come check out my podcast. I promise you'll enjoy it. It's people rave about it. There's a reason, it's the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world, and it's not ego. That's just fact, and I'm blessed to be able to say that. So Rod's Links is the best place.
Yep, definitely go check those out. And the final question is, if you can share one final thing with our listeners that they can take away from today's show, what would that be?
Don't sit on the freaking sidelines in this recession. Opportunity is coming. But you got to get up to speed immediately to take advantage of it. Don't waste this opportunity like I did in '08 and '09. Don't do it. You'll regret it. Don't be in the same place you are now 2 years from now, unless you freaking love where you are right now.
Well, Rod, thank you for sharing it. Catch you next time.
My pleasure, brother.
Bye.
All right, take care.
It's time to grab your victory. Find us on the web at redseacapitalgroup.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Red Sea Capital Group.